Well, welcome back to Teach Me to be a Construction Estimator. This is episode 6, Performing Takeoffs, part 1. Now, in part 1, we're basically just going to get into the Plan Swift icons for doing takeoffs. Nothing really advanced in that because we want you to be able to practice with these default takeoff tools before we get into more advanced takeoff tools and me showing you how you can use templates for doing takeoffs. And that would be that how to use templates for takeoffs. We're going to show you in part 2. But let's get right into it. So let's close this down. Now I am using the sample commercial and residential plans that come with Plan Swift when you download them. If you've kept those, that's great. You can work right in. If you're doing a trial, you should have those with your trial, and we're just using that. We're going to use the architectural site plan and level 1 floor plan for this. So we really don't need, we're not going to do anything residential. We're going to stay in the commercial. And so let's just go right to that. But this is the introduction page. So if you've got this with your download of Plan Swift, you can actually, kind of work along with us and pause the video as you need to. So let's go to the architectural site plan first. And typically, you'll see an architectural site plan in most drawings. The architect lays out what he wants the site to look like, and then usually anything further, any details on that site is usually in your civil drawings. But typically, you will see a layout, and that's what it is. And we're going to do some just basic takeoffs in this before we go to our floor plan. So you need to if it's not already scaled, you need to scale it. You see the scale is 1/16. And if I pull down the scale, you see it's already selected for me. And what we talk about on the other drawing is always checking a scale. We got a nice little dimension right there. So we can come over here and see where the hash mark is. And we can go hit on the dimension tool and click on that right in the middle of the wall, and then just go left and say 256, I think was what the distance was. Oh, sorry, I was wrong. It was 250 and 6. So try this again, dimension, go left, and remember from before, we say 250, and then to get to the next thing, to the next field, just hit period, and it takes you 6. And it should measure. If it hits that hash, we're perfect. So the drawing checks out and we're scaled. So there's 4 icons for doing basic takeoffs in Plan Swift: area, linear, segment, and count. And for this drawing, we're just going to use the basic icons and none of the pull downs. So let's just click on area, and it allows you to pull in the name, what area you're taking off. And we're going to take off this transformer concrete pad. So trans concrete pad. And we're just doing a basic takeoff. We're not doing volume. We're just doing square footage. I can pick the color I want to. And we'll leave it solid. Okay, this is just a very simple basic takeoff. Now on the bottom, you should have snap and ortho checked. For everything we're doing here, snap and ortho needs to be checked. So 2 ways of doing this. We can start on a corner and click. And as we're going across, we'll see it measures the distance of your line you're pulling. So we can simply come and click the next corner, or we can use an exact distance by hitting an arrow key and saying how far we want to go and use that instead. We're going to just click in corners. That is the easiest way to learn to start taking off area. And boom. If we highlight over across top of it, it says 293.22 square feet. If we go to our estimating tab, we can see it says 293.2. There's no cost associated with it. This is not an assembly or even a template. So it's just very basic information. If we wanted to round this up, it's always a simple procedure in PlanSwift. Just go to the right of Takeoff, click on this double parentheses and say round up. Click outside of it, takes it to 294 square feet. And you could price it at this point if you wanted to. We're not doing that today. So we just took off the square footage of the concrete pad. Linear. Let's say I want to take off a linear measurement, and linear and segment are similar but different. Linear allows you to go through corners and keep going until you stop at segment, takes off one straight line at a time. So I want to take off this probably barrier wall here to hide the trash container. And so I'm going to go click on linear, and I'm going to say trash wall. And there again, I can pick the color. And I'm going to go start it. I'm just going to go to the middle of the line. You can see it follows. And as I click the corner, it follows me around the corner. And boom. And I hit escape to stop. And you can see now I have this nice wall section. If I don't like the color, I can go back in later on and I can change it here. Change it to something I can see better there. There's my wall. And it tells me I've got 119.1 feet. Segment. If we did a segment on this, it would basically tell me to do each line individually. It would still add up to be all of the footage you need, but it takes off one line at a time. For example, plumbing trench, where you've got a main line and you got all these branches. Segment tool is great for that because you draw the main line and then you draw all the branches, and you don't have to stop and start recording each time for every branch. That's basically the difference. So let's show you linear. Let's say this is this is a good one here. Striping for the parking lot. So we'll go and we'll say segment, and we'll say striping. And there again, I can change the color and go OK. And I start here, and you can see, boom. It starts and stops. I don't have to restart or stop to do these. I'll hit escape stop. That's basically your segment tool. Count. Let's say I'm going in and I'm having to replace these doors on this building. And that'd probably be more suitable to the floor plan, but we're going to stay on this one for now. So I'll go count, and I'll say door replace. Wish I could type here. I can change the shape. I can do a square if I wanted to. There again, I can change the color. I can do it scaled if I want it to be a particular size. Usually just for a count, I don't need it scaled. And I can keep the color or I can change the color like everything else in here. And hit OK, and it goes into count mode. And I just start counting. There's my little squares. And it keeps it always so you can, even if you zoom out, you can see those squares. And that's what the scaled function works. If you didn't want to see it blown up like that, you would click on that scaled button. So there's the doors I need to replace, just the man doors. And I hit stop up here, or I hit escape. And off the side here it says door replace 6. That's the basics. We did an area, a linear, a segment, and a count. Now what I haven't shown you is the pull downs. You've got a lot of options in these, and that's what we're going to show you in the floor plan. So let's go to that. And I've got some areas highlighted that I want to go ahead and do with this. So we take the tool a little bit farther. Now, these basic icons, you want to start any of those, you just click on the icon itself. You want something a little different, you click the pull down, and you've got variables of that. the single click area. So let's go into that first. And there also is a single click icon. It's basically the same thing if you just want to go to single click and choose something. But it's duplicated. I don't know why they did that. You have to ask Plan Swift. We'll talk about single click area first. It assumes that you've got an area that is closed that it can measure, because if it's not closed, it'll go outside of it and it'll go everywhere. And I'll see if we can show you how that works. I don't use it too often. But let's say we were wanting to, in this area, one of these rooms, put in floor tile. And I didn't want to have to measure with area tool. I just need a quick and dirty measurement. And so I need to click in an area. And you can see the problem right away. Because there are additional lines, it's not really open. If I hit escape, that's what it did. Because it can't discern these lines being the actual total area versus something else in the drawing. If you get something that's truly a closed box with no other lines in it, it'll work. Let's try this again. We'll try it on a different one. I won't bother saying anything. I'll just click on it. Now that one worked pretty good, except for the door. It excluded the door. It couldn't tell that that wasn't in the area. So single click, take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes if you just got a really good box or area with nothing inside the box or nothing inside the area, it will draw it, and it draws it very accurately. But you can see it has limitations. So let's go to our next one, roof area. Now, roof area is basically if you took a square foot and you added pitch, because a lot of roofs have pitch to it. If you've got a house, your roof has a pitch to it. A lot of commercial buildings don't have a pitch. It's a flat roof. But let's assume this actually had a pitch. And we're going to go back to, nah, it's too big. Well, let's go back to it real quick. It is kind of big, but we'll show you how quick we can do it. So area, roof area, and pitch. We're going to do a 412 pitch, which you just put in 4. Pick the color there, and there again, I'm just having to pick the lines, and I'm going to go through this. I'm going to actually speed it up so you don't have to wait for me to click every corner. Okay, we sped up the process. So now we're at, this says the roof area is 40,397. So it's not as exact as maybe the actual interior square footage that the architect records, but it's actually, you can see it's actually pretty close for as big as that is. So it says 40,000, we'll call it 40,400 square feet. Okay. We'll go to our roof area here. It says it's 42,582. That's because of the pitch. If we change the pitch, it would be more or less. So it's actually figuring the square foot area based on that pitch. That's what pitch does. It increases the square footage so you know exactly how many roof tiles or asphalt paper or whatever roofing materials you're having to put down based on the pitch. It's that simple. I'm not a roofing guy. There's probably more to it I could explain if I was. We're just going to go back to our floor plan. So that's what the roof area does. The price per square foot really is just another area tool that allows you to go ahead and put a price per square foot. If you knew, for example, that you were putting carpet in and your carpet cost $4.50 a square foot, you could use this tool, put in $4.50, and simply, I see if I could type. I obviously can't type. And I could simply measure an area, say, well, I want to measure in here. I'm just doing this real quick. I'm not doing it real precise. I'm actually measuring through the wall there. I don't want to go into the kitchen. Let me back up. You can always back up using the backspace. I'm not going to go into the kitchen, and this is the area that I'm basically putting carpet into. And if I go to my estimating tab, I can see carpet at 949.74 square feet at 450. And I don't like that I'm using decimals. I'll go here and say round up. 950 square feet at 450, $4,275 for that carpet. Home always takes you back to the plans. So that's my carpet area. So we did price per square foot. Area cubic yards. This would probably be very good if we were figuring, let me get rid of that one, a floor tile one. So let's say we were having to re-pour this floor. So I would go in here and say area cubic yards, and I would say re-pour slab, how thick. I'm going to stay with 4 inches, and I'm going to charge $175 a cubic yard for my concrete. I'm just figuring the concrete to this point. I don't even know if that's a good price or not. And I'll leave the hatch area okay. I don't need to do anything else. And I just start my takeoff here and go through here. Remember, you're using 2 fingers. Right clicking allows you to move around the area. Left clicking allows you to click the points. And then your wheel allows you to zoom in and out. And I promise you, you'll be able to do it as fast as I do in no time. And now, re-pour slab, 3,353 square feet. The point count is just every corner I clicked on. If I go to estimating, I see I've got a price of 40. It's going to take 41.4 cubic yards at $175 a yard. There's my concrete cost. Now, typically we would round those cubic yards up, and we would usually add concrete for ready-mix truck, that, concrete that never gets out of the truck. You add another yard to it or something like that. Typically for pumping concrete, usually we'll add something for the pump. But that gives you an idea of how that works, and that's all we're trying to do today, is show you how that works. So now we've done area cubic yards. And also, we could, if we were building a template, once we did the square footage of the concrete, we could have it calculate automatically the amount of square feet or rolls it would take or sheets of welded wire mesh. If we were having to put rebar on the slab, well, that's a different story. We need to know, well, what is the pattern of rebar? And that's where the grid tool really comes off. And you can use the grid tool for all kinds of things. I use it for slicing and dicing concrete. If I was having to take out this area to replace, I would cut it up in certain sizes. And I'm going to show you that. But you could also use this for calculating rebar. So we're going to click on that area, that pull down, and go grid tool. And it's going to ask you, one, do you want to rename it? I'll go say, yeah, I want saw cutting. And I'm going to be in there with a slab saw, and I'm going out these small doors. Well, this looks like maybe a roll-up door here. So I'm going to say I'm going to be able to cut it up into a 4x4 pattern. So I'm going to go 48 inches, because this input is always in inches. I could select a parallel side for where I want to saw cut. If you've got something that isn't square, in other words, kind of at an angle, sometimes when you do these grid patterns, it looks wonky. So if you select parallel side, you can always get your pattern parallel to a wall, or parallel to the drawing. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. So 48 by 48, really nothing else I need to do. I'm not counting intersections, so I just go okay. and I just reuse that takeoff. That's why you have that snap tool in. And I should have told it not to use a color, because now I got the color in there twice. But there's my cut pattern. So I've got 1,700, call it 1,730 feet of cutting to get that slab out. Now, there's a lot of ways I can modify this for single cuts or double cuts and all that. And if you're not a saw cutter, you won't care. But think of this also as a way of designing your rebar pattern. Let's say you have to put rebar in every 2 feet or something of that nature. Anything that requires a pattern that you can do with the grid tool, you can have it not only calculate your footage, you can also have it calculate the cost. How much is it going to cost for me to cut this? I'm going to show you in part 2 my templates of how I use a grid tool to actually determine my cutting cost. So that gets us through all the area stuff. The joist tool, like I said, I'm really not going to get into. I'm not an expert at using the joist tool, and I'd advise you to maybe look at people that are roofers that use Plan Swift, and if they have videos on it, can explain it a lot better than I can. I try not to go into explain things that I don't use. So you can play around with the joist tool. I've done it before. It's kind of weird how it works. Sometimes to get it to draw the joists. But if you're a roofer and you're putting in joists for the roof, it's a really great tool. For me, I just use the grid tool because if I want something just in a particular direction, I just zero out. Hit OK. Click back in there, redraw grid. It's a joist tool, isn't it? Well, I've got 807, 808 feet of joists. You could use this as a joist tool too. You just zero out. You just have to know which direction you're going in. So that is basically, that completes our area stuff. Well, that completes our area takeoffs. Let's talk about linear. Now, what is the difference between linear and segment? It's really simple. If I was drawing, let's say, a box around this blue area, I would want to pick the linear because it's going to go around corners. If I just want to pick one side and then go and pick another line somewhere else in the drawing, I would use the segment. Let's show you what I mean. Let's say I want to take off these walls here. I could pick wall area. And it says, give me the wall height. And I'm going to say like 8 feet, commercial feet, probably more like 10 feet. Number of walls, one wall. The wall, width of the wall. Okay. And there's also an appearance where you put in the color and the fill type. So this is all we're going to do on that. We're going to click on OK. And we're just going to start drawing. And I stay in the middle of the wall. And see what happens is as I turn a corner, it stays with me. And I'm not really being real precise here, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of how this tool works. And I'm just going to complete this box and stop it. Hit escape. Now that color doesn't show up very well, so I'm going to do a different color. So there is my wall takeoff. If I go to my estimating, it's going to tell me I've got 1,038 square feet of wall. If this was partitions, that'd be very helpful to know because that would tell me, well, how much sheetrock. It may not tell me exactly how much framing I need, but it would tell me how much sheetrock I need. Now, that's one-sided, right? If you're doing a two-sided wall, I do two sides, so guess what happens? Now I've got 2,706 square feet. That's my sheetrock. So that's just a built-in tool. I would tell you that you probably want to build your own tools, your own assembly that would come up with your framing, your sheetrock, and whatever else you need to give you how to build that partition completely. That's how the linear tool works. All right, segments. Now, I don't use any of the pull downs for segments, But let's go through them. You've got a beam tool, a joist segment, a segment cubic yards, a segment wall area. Now, segment wall area would be similar to the linear wall area. It's going to ask you for a height, width, and it's going to figure your total wall. So if you had walls that weren't adjoining each other, it would probably be a better tool than the linear because you wouldn't have to start and stop the measurements. It would automatically start and stop each time you clicked on your mouse. I'll show you what that would look like. You see it's similar. Wall height again, number of sides, wall width. And the difference is when you click, it stops there, and now I can click in a different area. I don't have to start and stop. It's basically for lines that are not necessarily connected, and you're not turning corners. You're just drawing one line at a time, which would be great if you're doing something like plumbing trench where you've got a main line and then you've got all these branches coming off. So think of the segment tool as kind of a disjointed linear tool. It's still linear measurement and still will add up your total, in this case it was a wall takeoff, total square footage, or your total linear footage. So just a different tool that basically does the same thing. It all depends on how you're taking it off. Are you turning corners or not turning corners? Count. Other than the basic function of count that allows you to make a count or anything, that's pretty straightforward, right? I don't really need to teach you how to do a count, but there is some variations in count here. And one of them I liked is the labeled count. Now, all these other things is just for you can put in shapes in when you count. So if you're doing something and you want to use a particular icon for that, that's fine. But really, other than just the basic count, the labeled count is really the only other tool I use. So let's say we're going to put in, say, new doors. And what I like about this is not only can I pick the color like I can with everything else, and I can make it scaled and I can change what shape it is. I like that it actually puts the label. There's a new door. It says door 1. And I know I had some other doors over here before. I'm just doing man doors. There's door 2. So it puts a label down along with counting it. There's door 3. It's a double door. There's 2 more. So besides counting the doors, you can actually number the doors or label the doors. So you actually know that with the count, you've made a label, which is kind of neat that it makes a label along with it of whatever you said. So I think that's kind of a neat feature. So that takes across our basic functions of area, linear, segment, and count. And remember, I haven't shown you all the variables in here, but they basically work the same way, except some of them give you additional information or additional quantities based on what you're doing, like the roof area based on pitch, or the wall area calculates your square. Rather than give you a linear foot count, it gives you a square foot count based on height of the wall. The linear cubic yards or segment cubic yards might be good if you have something that's always the same width and breadth. In other words, for example, curb and gutter. If a curb and gutter is if let's say there's a certain size curb and gutter you're putting in that's 2 feet wide, an average of 10 inches tall, you could figure like the height and width of that. And when you got through measuring it, it would tell you how many cubic yards of curb and gutter you have. It'd be a great tool. I actually have a template that measures curb and gutter. It does it a little differently, but it's the same kind of thing. You're taking a linear measurement and it's turning into cubic yards for you so you know how much concrete to order. So that's pretty much it for this part 1, where we've shown you how to use these different basic tools. In part 2, we're going to show you how these tools can be combined into a template and actually going into an assembly, and how they can work together. And it all comes from this tool set your basic tool set for Takeoff and PlanSwift. So join us next time on Teach Me to Be an Estimator. We'll go into part 2 of taking off plans. See you next time.